Well, I was just thinking to myself here. I watched Path to Power recently, last night in fact, and I thought it was very well done. Actually, I thought that Akira Toriyama did a good job of encompassing kind of all the basics about Dragon Ball, which we all know and love. You can really tell that it was the 10th anniversary, and they were really trying to do something special with it. Like it was really taken seriously, and the animation was pretty damn good. I mean, it was honestly, I don't think it was the best animation I've ever seen put into Dragon Ball or something, but it was GT quality. Like it was, and I'll be honest, I think that even though I didn't like a lot of the character designs, I do believe that the animation was better in GT. Honestly, I feel kind of weird because for the most part, I've judged Dragon Ball based upon what a few people have told me and just its overall reputation. And conversely, I have also judged GT based on what little I've seen of it and its reputation. Like in my heart, and I mean it's kind of obvious, and I think a lot of people are this way, I really am a Dragon Ball Z fan, first and foremost. I mean, it's just what I grew up with. It's just the main part of the series I was exposed to. I got into it, I got hooked. I didn't really feel a whole lot of interest when I was growing up to really go back and watch Dragon Ball, or to go ahead and watch Dragon Ball GT. I had a little bit of interest in GT, but the thing was, enough time passed after I ended my period of watching Dragon Ball Z that I just didn't really have as much desire to watch everything else about it. Now, as the years have gone by, I've gotten a bit older, and we kind of got back into Dragon Ball Z a little bit, got a little nostalgic. I also wanted to learn a lot more about it, a lot more about the characters, a lot more about the story, everything. And I really feel that for a long time thought that Dragon Ball would probably bore me because it just didn't have quite as good animation. It was more kid friendly. It didn't have as much ridiculous action and really very little sci-fi elements. Very few sci-fi elements. There were a few little things, robots and such, but not to any great extent. But yeah, I thought Path to Power was really good representation. It really summed up all the main points of the story, all the basic themes, and the essence of Dragon Ball. Really just thought that it was really good to see the characters interact, and it was kind of the stuff that had happened originally, but it was fresh and new, and they managed to compact it into actually a decent feature. Like, I think it was about 80-some minutes long. It was actually, I think the longest Dragon Ball related thing I've ever seen. My main gripes with it were, I think, mostly just that I didn't really think that a lot of it was funny. I thought it was a good story, but a lot of the humor, I thought, it was the kind of stuff that made you kind of crack crack a grin, smile a little, maybe giggle once in a while. But I only really laughed once, hard. I really, really laughed one time, and it was the tortoise, and I won't give it away, but he just kind of is this guy that sort of states the obvious, and he does it a couple times, it's not really important. Then the third time he does it, it's just in a very different situation, and it just really is funny. I mean, I always kind of liked the tortoise character, the turtle character, and even though he's one of the most minor characters of Dragon Ball, he did play an important role. Is that him being found by Goku and Bulma is ultimately what him helping him get back to Master Roshi is what leads him to be trained by Master Roshi and begin his martial arts journey. So, though the turtle has a very small role, I think one reason that he's still kept in background appearances is simply, well, he's Master Roshi's friend, but also the fact that he really started a big part of Goku's journey. Only other real gripe I had with the film was just the fact that Krillin wasn't in it, and that's not really a gripe. Not because I don't like Krillin, he's actually one of my favorite characters, but for how they did the story, the story that they told, and the way they did it, they didn't really need Krillin to be in there. The main focus was, they did Goku's growth as a person, his training. It really was meant to just kind of sum up all of Dragon Ball but really without the martial arts tournament stuff, which I will admit is a big part of it. But when you get right down to it, each Dragon Ball movie, unlike Dragon Ball Z, where they don't try to like sum up anything because it's kind of impossible to do that, what they do is they either take elements from different story arcs, change certain things, and put that to fit sort of kind of not really in the timeline, or occasionally they'll make up original things. The only two real original Dragon Ball Z movies are the first two. The Dead Zone, which is a completely, basically, I mean, you couldn't say completely because it is kind of partially inspired by King Piccolo, but it's kind of its own standalone thing. And The World's Strongest, which is really the most, I think the one reason I like that one is one of my favorites is because that is probably the most original story, not borrowed from like any other aspect of Dragon Ball Z, like with significant similarities. Like it really is kind of its own thing. Everything else in Dragon Ball Z, like the Tree of Might borrows from the Saiyan Saga and Frieza Saga a little bit. Lord Slug is kind of paying homage to the King Piccolo story arc back in Dragon Ball. Of course, the Cooler's Revenge is kind of one of the more unique ones because it kind of focuses on a different aspect of the full Frieza story. But it is basically the Frieza Saga, summarized. Return of Cooler is also a bit original, but it's kind of a sequel to the first movie, so it doesn't really count quite as much. Broly is there, I think, for originality. Everything else that I can remember, the Super Android 13, of course, is just the Androids and Cell sagas kind of summed up, pretty much. Trying to think of forgetting anything here. The Broly movie is original, like I said, though the sequels really are, though they might be, I guess, original, they're sequels, and they just kind of suck each time, from what I know. The whole Fusion Reborn thing is really just the Majin Buu saga with a slightly different premise in like 60 minutes. Which actually made it better, to be perfectly honest with you. I think Janemba was a better villain than Majin Buu. He just looked cooler, and he was about the same character, and he had cooler abilities. His whole thing where he could just kind of like just sort of digitize himself and disintegrate into like these little blocks and then sort of teleport around things was really cool. It's probably one of the most unique fight sequences in anything I've seen in Dragon Ball Z, but honestly, other than the visuals and a few kind of funny moments, it's really not that great of a movie. Hirudegan, I honestly know virtually nothing about. From what I know about it, it's actually fairly original. But it seemed like it was kind of more of a GT sort of thing. And the whole Super Saiyan 3 thing just kind of pisses me off. We're not going to go into that. Anyway, the thing that I think made the Path to Power movie so good really was just what they did, number one, for themes, and probably, and of course, once again, their strongest thing, character development. I was surprised that they were able to keep kind of just sort of redo the same story and still keep it kind of fresh. And they changed one crucial element that really made Path to Power stand out as kind of its own thing. There's some spoilers here, but as you know, it's kind of the whole focus of the movie is basically the Red Ribbon Army saga. And of course it's cut down, certain people are cut out, limited, but Goku goes to Muscle Tower, because they accidentally run into the Red Ribbon Army who decide they want to try and take their Dragon Balls from them, and Goku fights them off and pretty much annihilates most of the army. And then he comes into Android 8, runs into him, and Android 8 is this early, android from the Red Ribbon Army that was designed, to hunt, destroy, all that stuff. He's modeled after Frankenstein's monster. It's kind of cool. And he's kicking Goku's ass, and really, I don't think I've ever seen any fight so completely one-sided in anything involving Goku. Maybe in his fight against Tao Pai Pai, and I guess you could argue Goku getting smacked around by Vegeta in his ape form. But I don't think I've ever seen anything quite as one-sided. He just basically, it was a really quick fight. He just kind of tried to punch the android, didn't do any damage to him. The android was fairly fast too. got a hold of Goku and he just couldn't get out of his grips. He could have easily killed Goku, but turns out that deep down this android was a good android, had a soul, whatever, and didn't want to kill, didn't want to hurt things. And they kind of made it a really interesting, made it a little silly and a little cliche, but it was just the kind of angle you're not expecting from Dragon Ball, where they took the android, they kind of expanded on what they did with them in the series and focused on what it means to be good or evil, and kind of hinted a little bit of that, and he just decided not to do it. And it's cool because Goku befriends him, and it just kind of helps reinforce the best thing about Goku is it's not his great strength. I mean, he's really powerful, he's a great martial artist, all that stuff, and when he gets angry, you don't want to fuck with him, he cares about his friends and all that. It's his compassion, and it's just his purity of spirit. It's just one thing that all of Dragon Ball Z, all of it, and this movie really, but just Goku's pure-heartedness and how him being so pure and sheltered really affected his relationships with other people. And though it hindered him in some small ways, ultimately the fact that he's a really good person helps him come through in the end. Not because he, is able to beat Assistant Black, because Assistant Black really is also giving him a really one-sided fight. Like, they made the robot a lot bigger than it was on the show, a lot more impressive. It was just like this world-ending Japanese destroy Tokyo thing, and Goku cannot do any damage to this thing. He throws a Kamehameha at it. It doesn't, I think it puts like a little dent in it. It doesn't really do anything. He uses all his energy. He's about to get killed. He's about to get killed. But the kindness he demonstrated to Android 8 ultimately is what saves him, because Android 8 comes back in the heat of battle and saves Goku, and is basically like, saying the Red Ribbon Army made him destroy, he hates it, he just kind of makes his own little personal quest to end the Red Ribbon Army. And surprisingly, it's really funny to say this, I know it sounds silly, but I did not see this coming. Android 8 dies. Something that did not happen in the show, if I'm not mistaken. Really. He got killed rather brutally. He got crushed by Assistant Black's giant robot, like crushed him to death in his hands. And Goku sees the corpse, kind of like with Gohan and Android 16, which is, you realize, is actually kind of modeled after that. And of course, as a kind of a hint to Goku's power and to give some Dragon Ball Z fans some familiarity, Goku gets really pissed off, and this gives him a huge burst of energy and anger and power, and he just charges a big Kamehameha and just destroys Assistant Black, kills him. And then, of course, all the people put aside their differences about what they want, and it's kind of cool. It was really cool the way they did it. As you know, Bulma was willing to kind of cheat over Goku and lie to him to, get her wish, and she just wanted to have the perfect man. Yamcha just wanted to be, less afraid around girls so he'd get a girlfriend, and Oolong just wanted to be a pervert. And a lot of it's actually about sexual insecurities and just insecurities about dealing with people. And it's an angle about Dragon Ball I never noticed. It's about dealing with people and overcoming your own, difficulties and learning to befriend people. And they worked that theme in the movie, and it actually became really apparent towards the end. I didn't even realize it, but it was really cool. Bulma's like, I wanted to wish for the perfect man, but I may have found him. She found a boyfriend, basically. And Yamcha's like, through this experience, getting to know her and, working with her to save the world, basically, he really fell in love with this girl and is able to talk to her. And really, both Yamcha and Bulma really grew. And ultimately, it's Goku uses a pure-hearted wish to do an act of kindness and bring Android 8 back to life, which they don't show, interestingly. It's really cool. It's weird how it's the most predictable, truly Dragon Ball thing to do, the whole thing, and yet I still was surprised, I still didn't see it coming, and I was like, wow, what a great ending. And I'll admit, there are points in the movie where I was kind of like, yeah, I can kind of see where this is going, but really towards like the last 15 minutes of the film, like, I thought it was a fairly lighthearted, funny, action-packed, cool show. I thought it was Dragon Ball, but I was like, it's just Dragon Ball. There's really not any of, like, Dragon Ball Z. And then there's this moment where it evoked true drama. It was a great shot. It was... Everyone has been captured by the Red Ribbon Army, and Goku got knocked out because he got hit in the head with a rocket. But it knocked him out. And he wakes up on the beach alone, and he's like, where is everybody? They wouldn't have left without me. And it's just this kind of ominous feeling like something's wrong. And Goku has to go and save his friends from the Red Ribbon Army instead of just going and destroying them like he does in the show. And it just, there's a lot of tension, and it's really good. It's really, really good. I was very impressed by it. And I have to say, it was mostly the ending that really solidified it for me. But yeah, it was definitely a good movie overall. Of course, they got Yamcha and Puar and yet Master Roshi and Turtle and Bulma and Oolong, and they got them all right. They did I don't think they did the Red Ribbon Army quite as much justice. They should, it's kind of a shame they had to take some people out. But they had Android 8. They had Colonel Silver, I think his name was, who had an interesting kind of more manipulative role. He wasn't a physical fighter. He was more manipulative. I thought they did a really good job with Assistant Black and Commander Red. I thought that their relationship was pretty good. They actually had some people. Him killing Commander Red just felt like it came out of nowhere, even though I knew it happened. And same thing with Blue being killed for his failure like that. I mean, something about it was, even though it was cool to see Tao Pai Pai kill the guy with his tongue, somehow, it still was kind of silly. And this thing just kind of walk him off screen and shoot him with machine gun fire. I'm like, damn. But yeah, I think this kind of stresses how. I think, you see, the thing about it is, I think is interesting, is that Akira Toriyama could have used any story arc probably to really, he could have used any major story arc to tell the story again. And keep all the same themes and main points and get the essence of the show across well. But I believe he chose the Red Ribbon Army saga because that was the first time in the series and in Goku's life where things really started to take a serious turn. It was the first time where catching the Dragon Balls really had a lot of significance. He really felt like the world was bent on saving it, unlike Emperor Pilaf, who was kind of a joke. And you had Goku to train, grow as a person in his adventures and encounters with the Red Ribbon Army, helping people. And even though the Red Ribbon Army, a lot of them were kind of silly, to some extent, I think that it was also really the first, some of the first true villains in Dragon Ball. I mean, they're very unique too. And I think it also emphasizes the importance of the role in Dragon Ball Z, where these androids and these themes about, like, the whole essence of the soul, I guess, and, the Red Ribbon Army's vengeance against Goku coming back to haunt him. They really made that seem a lot more important in the movie. Like, there was a reason why Akira Toriyama chose to bring it back and make it a big part of Dragon Ball Z. His best saga of Dragon Ball Z, many people would argue, is the Android and Cell saga. The whole thing with Trunks and Red Ribbon Army, just how it just was a very interesting aspect. And I think that this movie, being based around that story arc, really solidifies the fact that Akira Toriyama, if he didn't think it was the best one, it was at least his preferred way of telling the story. Let's see, what else was I going to say? Now, even though I think it was really well done, and I think that you could argue it is probably the best made film cartoon movie out of anything in Dragon Ball. I honestly think that's probably true. They put a lot of effort in the animation, the writing. I saw the Funimation dub, of course, but the voice acting was pretty good for the most part. It feels like they put a lot of effort into it, a lot of heart. Oh, excuse me. Let's see. Though I'll be honest, it wasn't my favorite Dragon Ball movie. My favorite Dragon Ball movie is actually the Sleeping Princess and the Devil's Castle. That is a really good movie, actually. Like, it was really entertaining, and I feel more of a desire to go back and watch that again, because it's kind of funny. It's the same basic story. It serves the same basic function, but it doesn't include the Dragon Balls, really. at all. It's really just about Goku and Krillin getting to know each other and their journey, and I kind of liked it better. It felt more like it was a combination of being a summary of the Dragon Ball story arc. I think it was supposed to be, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be similar to any of the other story arcs from the show, but it's supposed to be the beginning of the martial arts training for Goku and Krillin. But the second half of it just seems like it could have been just like another mini story arc in the sagas in the series. It's a really cool premise. Like it was dark. It was silly, of course, but it was still sort of had a weird, eerie darkness, sort of a Tim Burton-y thing going on. Kind of a quirky, upbeat darkness, if that makes any sense. Basically, Goku goes out and seeks Master Roshi because he wants to, learn how to be a good martial artist. And Master Roshi is just kind of feeling lazy at the moment, doesn't feel like teaching him, so he basically says, there's this legend of this sleeping princess in this devil's castle. If you go to this mystical land where these monsters, where this sleeping princess is, you bring her back to me, it'll be the first big step in your training, sharpen your skills, and I'll teach you the rest of what I know. So it's basically a really epic quest, for Goku to, it's the first part of his training. Of course, really the real reason is for Master Roshi to, get a girlfriend because he's a pervert and he's too much of a coward to go up and do it himself. But it still ends up serving its purpose. And of course, Krillin gets there, and they're rivals, and they're like, I'll do this first. And the cool thing about Krillin, which I think really is shown, Krillin is not as fast. Krillin is not as, strong. He's not as he's still got some skill, but really his thing is actually outwitting people. He tricks Goku a couple times. He uses strategy and actually manages to get ahead of Goku at some points purely based on that. It was kind of cool. And that was really a big part of it. The other interesting thing I kind of liked was the fact that Oolong, Puar, Yamcha, and Bulma all know each other. They all know Goku. This part of the story has already been told, and you just get to see them interact. And basically, Bulma gets, I forget exactly why, but she gets caught up in this whole, I think she's searching for something too, this artifact or something. And she gets kidnapped by Count Lucifer, the main antagonist of the film, who is honestly one of my favorite Dragon Ball anything villains. I just like the guy. He was kind of cool and fun and silly, but genuinely evil. His name's Count Lucifer. He's the devil, basically. He's a vampire. He's basically the devil. And it turns out the sleeping princess is actually a jewel that once you you get like a young virgin girl and you sacrifice her or something with all these demons gathered around, it'll cause eternal night, and all the demons of the night will be able to roam the earth forever. And so basically Count Lucifer kidnaps Bulma and has got a plan to just basically slowly drain her of her blood for this sacrifice so that he can do this. Wow, it's actually Dragon Ball stuff with it's Dragon Ball, honestly. It's got some interesting plot stuff going on. And basically Goku and Krillin unknowingly are going to end up saving Bulma, but they think that it's just a jewel and they can get past these monsters. And he gets cool. You get armies of demons with machine guns. It's funny as hell. And the other cool thing I liked about it was, well, not only do you get to see all these characters interact, they all know each other, like Goku, what are you doing here, and blah blah, all that stuff, and you get to see Yamcha truly be useful for once. Basically, Yamcha is stealthily, pretends to be one of the demons, and Oolong and Puar use their shapeshifting, and they try to go in and basically try and save Bulma, and they almost save the day. I actually was like, wow, Yamcha's doing something. It was kind of cool. I really liked Yamcha in that movie. I liked Bulma too. She was kind of clueless. I know she's a really smart girl, but whenever it comes to guys and romance, it's her one weakness. She's just a complete ditz. But I liked Bulma. I liked it. And Krillin was really funny. He was really cute. It was just cool stuff. But yeah, it was just a great movie. I really liked it a lot. Yeah, well, I'm almost home. I think that if I had to do a top 5 Dragon Ball-esque related movies, I think that those two might be up there. Honestly, though, it's funny. The top Dragon Ball Z movies, I thought about doing a top 10 list, but I realized that's almost a cheat because I probably like 10 out of 13 of the movies, or 8 of them or something. And it's just kind of like, yeah, doing a top 5 would be more difficult. Like, if I'm going by the best made, honestly, the thing about Dragon Ball Z movies is that some of them are really good, some of them are really bad, and some of them are just your standard Dragon Ball Z movies, so they're okay for Dragon Ball Z. So it's like, really when you get right down to it, you get a couple really good movies, a couple really bad movies, and a bunch of movies that are really about equal with each other. So it's really kind of hard to judge them like that. Let's see. Oh shit. Excuse me. Well, I have to like think about this and write this down. I still haven't done that. No, I'll get back to you on that one.